Picture this: a cold, quiet night in December in Kyiv, Ukraine. A lone ATM is standing silent on the sidewalk, but then, without warning, the machine suddenly roars to life. It begins spitting out stacks of cash, relentlessly cascading onto the snow-covered pavement. A stunned person walks by, freezes, then scrambles to scoop up the money. There are no alarms blaring, no masked men, and certainly no explosions. It was an impossible, silent robbery, and it was just the beginning. By sunrise, dozens of ATMs from New York to Barcelona were completely empty. Bank records showed a terrifying number. $1 billion was missing, yet every vault was still locked, and every machine was intact. The mechanism of the greatest bank heist in history was not a crowbar or a getaway car, but rather one single, innocuous email. 3 clicks, and $1 billion was gone. Welcome back to the Digital Sleuth. Tonight, we are diving deep into the Carbanak syndicate, a case that truly revolutionized how we think about cybercrime. We have to ask the question that keeps bankers up at night. How did an ordinary cafe waiter turn a rented laptop into the biggest bank hack in history? And how safe is your money, really? Meet Maxim Yakubets. By day, he was just a waiter in Ukraine, earning pocket change and tips. But by night, he was Aqua, an obscure, self-taught coder immersed in the darker corners of the internet. Tips simply did not pay the rent, but what truly drove him was pure ambition. He was not interested in small-time hacks like stolen credit cards or email scams. He was thinking much bigger. In 2013, banks were considered the fortresses of global finance. Breaking into one was supposed to require guns and masks, but Yakubets was about to prove everyone wrong. He would do it with no guns and just pure code. He had heard rumors about leaked malware source code, something called Carbanak, a notorious bank Trojan whose developers had slipped up and lost control. To Yakubets, that leak was a massive opportunity. He tinkered with the code for weeks, and that Carbanak source code became something entirely new and extremely deadly. Line by line, he built a digital skeleton key that could open practically any bank. He named it Carbanak. His very first bank breach took only seconds, and he found it too easy. He quickly realized he had struck digital gold, but to truly cash in, he needed a crew. He assembled a small team of fellow Eastern European tech geniuses and seasoned hackers recruited from shady online forums. With Carbanak as their powerful ace, they were ready to take on the biggest prey in the world. The former waiter, once serving customers coffee, was now serving up a recipe for what investigators would later call the Great Digital Bank Robbery. But here is the central mystery that baffled the FBI. How does a waiter with zero connections get inside 100 banks without anyone noticing a thing? The plan began with an inoffensive email. It was the ultimate sophisticated phishing attack. Yakubets crafted it perfectly. A polite cover letter and a solid resume attached. All the hallmarks of a genuine job applicant. He was targeting the weakest link in any system, the human element. In late 2013, one such email pinged into a branch manager's inbox at a European bank, and she saw an application for a vacancy she had advertised. Nothing seemed weird or out of place. With a single click, she opened the attached document and unknowingly opened the door to her bank's entire network. Carbanak immediately sprang to life on her PC, installing itself silently in the background. It only took one single careless click per target for the malware to burrow in and begin its detailed reconnaissance. The crew moved deliberately, like burglars tiptoeing through a mansion at night. Carbanak did not announce itself. It simply lurked, watching and recording everything. This malware had a truly startling capability. It could hijack webcams and secretly record screens on infected machines. For weeks, sometimes months, the hackers watched every single detail. The hackers saw every password typed and every transfer made, virtually looking over the employees' shoulders. They studied exactly how employees logged into cash transfer systems and how they scheduled big transactions, even watching them load ATMs with fresh cash. It was the digital equivalent of casing a vault, all done from thousands of miles away, and the bank employees had absolutely no clue they had invisible visitors on their computers. Yakubets intended to become the invisible insider. Why crack a safe when you can simply learn the combination and walk right in? Carbanak quietly hopped from the initially infected PC to critical systems, like the officers controlling wire transfers and the database admins. The activity was so cleverly done, mimicking normal employee behavior, that bank security teams dismissed a 2 a.m. login as just a routine update. The hackers waited patiently, sometimes for months, with no alarms or suspicion. Then Yakubets spotted the pattern, the billion-dollar opportunity. At 2:47 a.m. Moscow time, he typed the three words that sealed their fate: begin the harvest. 2 months into the operation, Carbanak had successfully expanded into over 100 banks across 30 countries. The crew now held the digital master key to virtually every one of these financial institutions. The attacks hit bank after bank in a synchronized blitz. At one bank, a clerk watched her cursor start moving on its own, initiating a large, unauthorized funds transfer. The methods were varied and sophisticated. One key tactic was balance inflation. An account with $1,000 would be magically altered to show $10,000. The hackers would then promptly transfer the $9,000 surplus to offshore accounts, leaving the victim none the wiser until much later. They also executed the holy grail of global banking, the SWIFT system attack. Using stolen credentials, they sent rapid-fire SWIFT messages, moving millions into shell companies and dummy accounts. By the time any red flags popped up, the money had already hopped through enough foreign banks that recovery was a complete lost cause. And when remote transfers were too risky, they still had the automated ATM cash-out trick as a backup. Security footage showed cash flying out of ATMs as if they were possessed. IT teams scrambled to find the malfunction, initially unwilling to utter the terrifying word, hacker. In total, the crew's take was approaching $1 billion. It was a heist so audacious it became an instant subject of every cybercrime documentary. Yet, many victimized banks stayed completely silent, too embarrassed to go public. This suited Yakubets just fine, because the less publicity, the longer he could keep the con running. But large sums of money have a way of drawing large attention. Law enforcement agencies around the world were now officially on the case, including Kaspersky, Interpol, Europol, and the FBI. The hunt began in Ukraine, where the first ATM oddities were spotted, tracing the Carbanak trail. One lucky break came when analysts noticed a simple error. A misconfigured router in the criminal network leaked a trace of real location data. This single slip led investigators to a luxury condo in the heart of Moscow, the Mastermind's suspected hideout. However, Russian soil was beyond the reach of Western warrants, and the trail went cold for a time. The true puppet master, Maxim Yakubets, watched the news of an accomplice's arrest in Spain and simply smiled. He was no longer the worried waiter. He was a multimillionaire living in an opulent mansion on Moscow's outskirts. What investigators eventually discovered was surreal. Yakubets was not just hiding in Russia. He had married into a family with ties to Russian intelligence. The deal was simple: rob foreign banks and stay free in Russia. He had essentially become an asset, protected by spies and untouchable by law enforcement. In December 2019, the FBI issued a formal indictment and a $5 million bounty, the largest ever offered for a cybercriminal. Yakubets' response was brazen. An Instagram story posted from his hot tub with the caption, "Thanks for making me famous." Yakubets didn't just rob banks, he effectively started a school. Since Carbanak, there have been 17 similar attacks, like DryX and Evil Corp. The same methods, and the same digital signatures leading back to the same Moscow IP addresses. So, what can we learn from this massive dark web scam that became a billion-dollar reality? First, the human firewall is key. This was not a flaw in code, it was a flaw in human behavior. Organizations must invest heavily in training employees to spot phishing and spear phishing emails. Remember to never click on attachments from unsolicited senders, no matter how legitimate they look. Secondly, banks learned they cannot trust anything inside their own network. They must adopt zero-trust architecture, meaning every device and every user must be verified as if it is coming from the outside. Finally, the financial sector now uses advanced AI to flag unusual transaction patterns immediately. An ATM spitting out cash without a card is now an instant red flag. Banks have rebuilt their entire security infrastructure and spent billions on defenses. But they also know the truth. They are fighting yesterday's war. Somewhere, right now, another waiter, another frustrated coder, another nobody is creating the next generation of malware, spreading and evolving. The question isn't whether the next billion-dollar hack will happen, it's whether it's happening right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of cybercrime documentary.